Okay, today, first day of anatomy content. This is going to be Unit 1. Intro to the body. And orientation to anatomy and physiology. You're going to learn the hierarchy of anatomy and physiology, and we're going to go over the systems. How many different organ systems do you have in your body? You have to know this number. I know Aiden knows it. 11. I heard 11 several times. Good. You have 11 organ systems in your body. Okay, everybody. You can look at either projector. Let's begin. Anatomy. The science of anatomy is basically the structure, composition, and design of parts. So when you say anatomy in general, it can mean anything. You could talk about the anatomy of a hurricane, the anatomy of a tidal wave, but this class is called human anatomy. So you want to refer to the anatomy of human body parts. I could look at a heart. Here's the ventricles, here's the atriums, here's the different layers of the heart, here's the tricuspid, bicuspid, valves, aorta, vena cava, so on and so on and so on. Those are the parts. What they're made of, what kind of cells they're made of, what kind of tissues they're made of, the shapes that they are. So this is really going to be types of cells, tissues, the shape and design, as well as any other features that actually is what it is. I haven't been able to take them down yet. I was going to do this afternoon.
Well, that's what I was wanting to see. That's what you said about?
Yeah, that's how they would be installed. I actually had somebody come by yesterday and they checked and he said they were done right. I understand.
Confirmation of that?
Yeah.
It's on you.
I understand.
All right. We'll put it in again. We'll get him back out here.
Okay, yeah, I talked to Donna because she's been helping me with this, and he stopped by today and I asked her if he was able to come as soon as possible just to sign up on it, I suppose.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, physiology. Where'd it go? There it is. This is basically how features and structures work. So this is more like the mechanics. And that's what this class is going to be about. What body parts are made of, how they're shaped, and then how they work. And also, yeah, what they're made of. Okay. Continuing on. There's different types of anatomy that we will discuss in this class, and I have a feeling you guys are going to learn quite a bit just from today. Got a little lesson for the boys in the house when you have to get a physical, like play sports. A little something that you may not even realize. I'll tell you a story behind that, but we'll get to that in due time. So there is such thing as gross anatomy. Now, by gross anatomy, I mean, ew, that's disgusting. Gross anatomy means able to see with the naked eye. You can see my skin, you can see my fingernails, you can see my arms, you can see my eyes. That's gross anatomy. If you open me up, you can see my heart, liver, intestines, ribs. You don't need a microscope for that. That is all known as gross anatomy. No microscopes needed. There's several different types of gross anatomy. We have regional anatomy. This is when you're looking at a certain area, like the shoulder or the chest. Regional anatomy is just going to be focus upon a specific area. Examples could be like a shoulder. If you tore your shoulder, we have to look at your clavicle, which is your collarbone. This thing right here, this is your collarbone. Your shoulder blade, scapula, it's back here. And your humerus, which is the top bone in your arm, from your shoulder to your elbow. That makes up your shoulder. Your pectoral girdle is what it's called. Anybody know what, there are doctors called ENT doctors. Anybody know what that stands for? What is it?
Eyes, nose, and throat.
Ears, nose, and throat. So another example, a doctor, whether you're Moffitt, like you're an E, you look at ENT cancers. So ENT, ear, nose, and throat. That would be another example of regional anatomy. If I had an ear, nose, and throat problem, I'm not going to go to a podiatrist, which is a doctor that studies the feet. A lot of doctors have expertise based on a certain region of the body. Podiatry is feet. Proctology is more of your rear end. Cardiovascular, cardiologist, heart, neurologist, brain, dermatologist, skin, endodontist, teeth, and so on and so on. All right, then we have systemic anatomy. This is going to be focused on an organ system. So for example, if you had to look at the entire cardiovascular system, that would be an example of systemic anatomy. I don't care about the skeletal system or the endocrine system. I'm just going to worry about the cardiovascular. And in the cardiovascular system, just for example, I know you guys have, all of you have at least some sort of foundation with this. Can you tell me what types of organs or body parts actually compose the cardiovascular system? If I was to study the cardiovascular system, what body parts or structures would you be focusing on? I'll give you a hint. You won't focus on the brain really, except for the blood vessels in the brain. So what would you be looking at? Okay, this would include the heart. What else? No, that's respiratory. It's actually, you're not wrong, because the heart and the cardiovascular and the respiratory are like the muscles and the bones. You can't have one without the other. But there is a separate system called the respiratory system. So there are other features in the cardiovascular exclusively. Yes. Yeah, we're going to say blood vessels. A vein is a type of blood vessel. And then what's in the blood vessel? What's in the heart? What's flowing through them? Blood. That's actually an entire unit in this class later in the year. Okay. Another subdivision of gross anatomy is going to be surface anatomy. And this is where some of you boys are going to get a little lesson here. I'm going to kind of get off track in a good way. Surface anatomy is things that can be seen through the skin or on the skin. Structures as they appear how do I want to say this? with overlying skin. Okay, if I had a huge bug bite or if I had a tumor on my skin, you can see that. That would be like surface anatomy. If I had a broken bone, here's my elbow, but if I had a big bend right here in my forearm, it might denote something's broken. Well, I want to share something with you guys that is the most common male procedure on earth, and it can really be diagnosed just by focusing on its surface anatomy. So I'm going to get this all set up real quick, and I'll show you what it is. And some of you might be like, that's me. It actually happened in second period. Someone said, I had that. Yeah. Okay, so check this out. It's called a hernia. Let me share the screen so everybody at home can see. There we go. So a hernia is when a piece of your intestine, typically your small intestine, has broken through a cavity wall and is pushing into an area of the body where it shouldn't be. So you can see there's umbilical hernias, there's inguinal hernias, there's femoral hernias, and there's other types. Well, they can happen in various ways. For males, I was mentioning the guys. How many of you guys have had to get a physical to play a sport, basketball, football, whatever? The girls likely have too. But here's something the girls don't have to do, the guys do have to do. You ready? Take your pants off, right? Here's what they're looking for. They take, girls are like, what? Here's what they do. Doctor slaps on some gloves, hopefully, and they'll put their hand right in your crotch, right near your genitals, and they'll say, turn your head and cough. This is bringing back some memories, isn't it? I went through 4 years of high school too. I know it just is what it is. My dad, when he played high school basketball, late 50s, early 60s, he said the entire basketball team had to stand in a row. They all had to drop their pants, and the doctor just goes, checks all of them. But here's what they're doing. They tell you to, all right, turn your head, cough really hard. Like, it's never good enough. They want you to scream. I remember doing that. I'll give you a C for coughing. Like, I'm going to break a lung. But what they're doing is when you cough, you exert pressure on your abdomen. And if you have a hernia, it's going to cause your hernia to protrude out. And that's what they're looking for. And if you have a hernia, you need to get it fixed, and you can't play sports until you get it fixed. It is the most common male inguinal hernia repair, which is this one, is the most common male procedure on earth. Now, in case you didn't know, males humans have the X chromosomes XY. Females have the sex chromosomes XX. There's a gene on the Y chromosome called the SRY gene. You remember this? You bet. Yes, Mr. Thorson, I do. She was in my AP Bio class. You should know all about this. There's a certain time in development of an embryo in a fetus, when the SRY gene, if you have it, turns on. But if that doesn't turn on, you're going to develop as a female. So we are all inherently female. And it takes a certain gene at the right time, the SRY gene, to turn you from the female parts into the male parts. So all of you, me, we had ovaries at one point. And then that SRY gene turned on, and your ovaries became testes. We all know the difference between male and female anatomy. The ovaries are inside. The testes are outside. So how do those testes go, those former ovaries, now testes, how do they get out? They have to descend. And this typically happens during the third trimester, months 6 through 9 of pregnancy. They descend out of your abdominal cavity, or your pelvic cavity actually, and into your scrotum. Layman's terms, that's your sac. But like I told you yesterday, we got to use proper terms in here. However, if you look at this image, I can't zoom in on it. Look at that image. The intestine can follow the testes through, the testes through. And this is known as an inguinal hernia. This is what doctors are looking for. So if you have this, here's the common symptom. Likely it doesn't give you any pain or discomfort. When you stand up, it's visible. When you lie down, it's gone. And then you stand up again, there it is. There's a hole there. The intestine just goes through. And so you have to get it patched up. So you get sedated, you go through surgery, they put a plug in the hole, They put a patch on the inside of the wall. They put a patch on the outside of the wall. I had this twice. It's the most common male procedure on earth. The doctor described it to me like this. You put a plug in the hole, and imagine you had a bucket. What if you just put a patch on the outside? Water could still leak through. So you put a patch on the inside of the bucket, a plug in the hole, and a patch on the outside of the bucket. It's all good. So I had it on my right side. 8 months later, I got it on my left side. And I asked the doctor, okay, I've had it on my right side, I've had it on my left side. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of having these surgeries. He goes, I asked him, what are the odds of me having this a third time? He says, less than 1%, but if you become obese, 40%, because your body mass is so big, it's just pushing down on those patches. But when you turn your head and cough, or when you laugh, you feel it. And it goes away, you lay down, stand up, there it is again. And so I never paid it any mind because it didn't give me any pain or discomfort. But when I saw these pictures when I was in school, I was like, oh, that's me. So got it fixed and still living and breathing, still fine. But I bet all of you probably, if you were to ask, there's a male in your life that's likely had this. It is the most common male procedure on earth. Aiden, you had your hand up? What's up? Now, you want to get it taken care of sooner rather than later because it could be strangled. No, just have seen. Your intestines carry food, and your digestive system is a one-way street. If it's strangled, you could cut out the blood supply. And what happens to something that doesn't receive blood? It dies, because what does blood carry? Oxygen. If something in your body doesn't get oxygen, it could die. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is this is all anatomy. See, do you need to cut someone open to see that? No. This is surface anatomy. Things you can see on the surface without any opening up, any dissections, any excisions. You just view it, okay? So sometimes when the doctor is giving you boys a physical, it's not easily seen, so that's why they want you to cough really hard. But let me ask you all this. You've all done this. Why do they ask you to turn your head and cough? Why can't you just cough? So you don't cough on the doctor. That's all. That's the only reason. They don't want you coughing on them. All right. You just walked in. You play football, right? You've had to have a physical. You know how they tell you drop your pants, turn him, cough? Yep. Every guy has to go through it. All right. And girls can get hernias too. You don't get it from your testes descending. You can get it from just like wear and tear. You guys know Steven Stamkos is. Remember how when they won the Stanley Cup in 2020 that he hardly played? He didn't play all but 2 minutes. He had a hernia. It wasn't an inguinal hernia like what I just showed you. It was just a hernia for being hit and skating. That's called like an athletic hernia or a sports hernia. It just ripped open. His abdominal wall ripped open. Some intestines came out. Had to stitch him up. But it takes about 8 weeks to recover. And then you're fine. So if you have to have that procedure, don't sweat it. Most common procedure on earth for males, 8 weeks, you're good. Okay, let's keep it going. The opposite of gross anatomy is microscopic anatomy. This is when you want to look at cells and tissues, or you have to do some really fine stitching or repair or surgery on someone. And so if you've never seen this done before, imagine that my podium here is my patient. I'm the doctor. Here's my tool. I'm not going to be looking at a microscope like this. There's this huge they'll go into a special operating room for microscopic surgery. This microscope will descend down from the ceiling, and they'll put it right where they want it. And there's a viewing area for the doctor, so he can stand here like this and be working on the patient by looking through the viewfinder on the microscope, the eyepiece, if you will. It's a very sophisticated microscope. It zooms right down on microscopic blood vessels or tissues that need to be treated or addressed. So microscopic anatomy is just features and structures too small to see with the naked eye. And obviously, given by the name, you need a microscope. Yes? Yeah, there's a bunch of containers over there at the end of that sink. Can't miss it. Have to go unlock it. 1 second, guys. All right. Okay, back to it. The types of, or the areas of biology where you would actually have to have microscopic anatomy are going to be cytology and histology. Cytology is the study of cells. You all should know that ology means study of. Meteorology, geology, biology, ecology, so on and so on. This is study of cells. There are about 200 plus different types of cells in the human body. We're going to learn a lot of them. Red blood cell, leukocyte, lymphocyte, T cells, B cells, neurons, neuroganglia, sperm cells, egg cells, osteocytes, all these different things. There's about 200 different types of cells. You'll learn them. There's 4 different types of tissue. Histology is study of tissue. Tissue is when you have multiple, 1 or more layers of cells, like the same cells all working together. So typically, cells and tissues are so small that you need a microscope to really get a good view of them. And finally, a few other subsects of microscopic anatomy would be developmental anatomy. This is going to be how the body changes over an entire lifespan. A 50-year-old body is certainly different than a 5-year-old body. There's a lot of different changes. Cells change, body parts change, and sometimes these changes are so subtle that you need a microscope to actually see the difference. Like your bones. My growth plates are closed. Some of yours still might be open. If this were elementary school, your bones would have more cartilage in them. Your bones are more flexible when you're younger. Then when you get older, your bones actually become more bone tissue instead of cartilage tissue. These are things we can see over time, but sometimes you need a microscope to see them. And then finally, we have embryology. Embryology is going to be the study of embryological development. Fun fact, the human egg cell is the only cell of the human body that you could actually see without a microscope, but it has to be really close to your eye. It's the biggest cell in the human body. When a sperm cell fertilizes the egg cell, it's a zygote. You can still see it. But you go from this little thing that's smaller than a period in your textbook into a baby, which can be like 25 inches long, 9 pounds. Embryology studies how that changes over time from looking like a little fish all the way to an actual human. That's embryology. All right, and that's basically a cap on anatomy and physiology. We're going to do a hierarchy real quick. I'm going to check on him, make sure he's okay, and then I'll come right back. Okay. All right, let's get into body organization. We're going to go from the smallest to the largest when it comes to your human body. The smallest structure. So let's start with the smallest. We're not going to do protons, neutrons, and electrons. We'll do that in like a week. Basic chem. But for now, what is the smallest unit of matter? No, that's life. Smallest unit of matter. Atoms. Okay, and we're off. As far as we know, there are 32 naturally occurring elements on Earth. All they are made up of atoms. 1 second. Olivia, what was the last name again? Oh, yeah, I've got it. Yeah. Olivia, go guys to music. Okay. Now, let's see if you guys can get this. The way this trend is going to go is a lot of atoms will make the next structure, and a lot of the next structure will make the next one, and so on and so on and so on. So when you have multiple atoms, what is formed? Molecules, and what's in the other one? C word? Compounds. Molecules and compounds. These are going to be atoms bonded together. We don't need to get into what types of bonds. We'll get to that later. Covalent, ionic, hydrogen. Okay. When you have multiple molecules, like lots and lots and lots of molecules, you make a really big molecule. Think back to the first few weeks of freshman bio, or maybe even AP bio. What do you call the big molecules? Macromolecules is correct. Macromolecules. The prefix macro. You guys are gonna learn a lot of Latin and a lot of Greek this year. Macro is, a prefix. These are going to be carbs, like carbohydrates, lipids, which are fats, proteins, and nucleic acids. Those are the 4 big ones. All essential for life. Okay, this is the last hard one. Once you get past this one, it should be smooth sailing. You get macromolecules, make a really big structure. The structure is found in cells. It typically has a unique function to help keep the cell alive. Organelles is correct. Good job. Organelles means mini organ. Mitochondria, chloroplast. You're not going to see much chloroplast in here. Humans don't have those. Golgi, endoplasmic reticulum, lysosomes, your nucleus. Organelles all work together to keep what functioning? To keep what alive? Cells. Cells are the smallest unit of life. We've obviously been dealing with a virus that's been passed around the world. Viruses are not living. They're called obligate parasites. When they are actually active, they're known to be viable. When they are no longer active, they're non-viable. You can't say something is dead or alive if it's never had life. but viruses are not considered alive. They're kind of like the freak show of nature. They're not living, but they have DNA or RNA. They have proteins, but they're not an organism. Okay, cells. Very good. Multiple cells in a layer are called what? Use these to wipe your nose. Tissues. One or more layers of cells. Typically, the cells are all going to be the same cell. There are 4 different types of tissues. We have a whole unit on it, unit 3. It's epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous tissue. Multiple layers of tissues form what structures in your body? What's the next one? Stomach, lungs, organs. Oops, I meant to say multiple layers of tissue, excuse me. Multiple layers of tissue. Okay, next one. You have 11 of these. Multiple organs working together for a common purpose. Organ systems. That is correct. Organ systems would be multiple organs functioning together to achieve a common goal. Like your cardiovascular system's common goal is to pass nutrients and gases throughout your body. Oxygen circulating, get rid of the CO2, pass along nutrients and vitamins and minerals. And then last one, 11 organ systems are going to compose a organism. A living thing. Very good. Okay. We didn't get as far as I wanted, but that's okay. We'll get caught up tomorrow.